Welcome to Dash and Baz. In this video, I will be showing you the correct way to add a DSP, a subwoofer, and an amplifier to a Mercedes W206. That's a Mercedes C-Class. The one that has the no burmester sound system. The one that has the basic standard audio with 4 speakers and 1 subwoofer. So if you've ever tried upgrading car audio and felt confused by technical terms, wiring diagrams, or conflicting advice online, this video is for you. Today I'm going to walk you through the correct and safest way to add a subwoofer, amplifier, and a DSP to a Mercedes-Benz W206. I will explain what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, and what mistakes to avoid, even if you've never installed car audio before.
This is Dash and Bass.
While modern Mercedes vehicles to be precise, are very different from the older ones. You can no longer just tap a speaker wire and expect to have good result. You may be able to do that in a W205, but with the W206, there's lots of control being done by the front arm to the sound that if you tap from the speakers or from the factory sub and feed that into your amplifier, you're gonna get processed sound with lots of distortion and weak bass. So most people end up with weak bass, distorted sound, or systems that stop working because they tap the wrong signal. Now this video exists so you don't waste money, you don't damage your factory wiring, you don't initiate any CAN-bus issues, CAN-bus errors. You don't want any error on your car, on your screen, and then end up disappointed. So what we are adding, in simple terms, we're adding 3 main things actually. We're adding a subwoofer amplifier, we're adding a digital signal processor, which is also known as a DSP, and we are adding a lock, a line output converter. So specifically for this system, we would need an active lock. Let's start with the lock. We need an active lock. So it's not just a passive lock. We can get a passive lock. I mean, there are so many passive locks you can see online these days, but an active lock is one that is powered. Yeah. So it's got a constant, it's got a ground, and it's got a remote out. So that's what you want to look for when you're trying to purchase a lock. And at this point, I would not go into details about the lock, but let's look at other things like the DSP. So for this system, I went with a Taram's 2.4S DSP. So this DSP is a really good one actually. It has only one flaw. Only one flaw of the DSP is that the eye level input is not reliable. Yes, I'll show you that later in the video. But apart from that, this DSP works really good for my testing, and it's a pretty inexpensive one, so you don't need to spend too much money before you can get a good sound out of your car. So that's the DSP we're using. This is the subwoofer. So we went with an American Bass Octane. It's a 1500 watt RMS subwoofer with 3000 watt max power and a form impedance. So this one can be wired down to either 2 ohm or you can wire it up to 8 ohm depending on your preference. I went with the 2 ohm load because I want my bass to be, a little bit louder, and I want to get some really good heart-rending punch from it, right? So I went with the 2 ohm load. I'm gonna show you that in a bit. I will wire that 2 ohm. So basically, if you want to wire this to a 2 ohm, you just need to wire it in parallel So connect positive and positive together, negative and negative together, and then you get one. The positive side goes into the positive speaking notch, and the negative side goes into the negative speaking notch. That's it. That's for connecting, wiring it down to 2 ohm. Now if you want to wire it up to 8 ohm, then you need to connect them in series. Yeah, I will show you briefly how this was wired. So let's see. So in this video, I wired this initially to 8 ohm. That's what you can see in the video. So I did a 8 ohm load, and then I did my test, and after the test I wanted a little bit more volume, so I eventually ended up wiring it again back to 2 ohm. So that is for our base subwoofer. Now we need to get an amplifier that's going to power this subwoofer, an amplifier capable of delivering the ROMS to this subwoofer. So our amplifier has to have an RMS value of 1500 at 2 ohm or more. So it should be 1500 or more at 2 ohm. Most amplifiers that you see on the market now, they give you the RMS, but the RMS is at 1 ohm. So you don't want to match an amplifier that says it's 1500 watt RMS. You have to check at what ohm is it that, because at what ohm it might produce 1500, but at 2 ohm it might drop to like 800. So you're not getting the power you need. So after a lot of research, I ended up with a Timo app. Yeah, one of these generic Timo apps that have been tested actually. So this has been tested by Wilson Labs. It's been tested and it's proven to be very reliable and efficient, and it's putting out the power it claims to put out. And during the course of this install, I'm really surprised with the power of this amp. I mean, it's really good. I mean, you don't need to spend too much money buying a 2000 watt amp when you can really get it for cheap, inexpensive, and it does the job beautifully. So yeah, the amp is delivering 2000 watt at 1 ohm. That means at 2 ohm we are getting about 1500, which matches perfectly to our sub. And the 3000 watt, we don't need to worry about that because that's just like the peak power. The peak power for this amp is 16,000. I don't expect it to deliver 16,000 peak power, but at least it is going to deliver something at least close to 11,000. And if you have to convert that to 2 ohm, it will be close to about 8,000 or 7,000. That's still plenty for what I want to use it for. That's still very plenty for this subwoofer. And with that, we are gonna look at what else are we gonna get. So you need a box. Obviously, you need a box. I had a box already lying around, which is a 10-inch box. It's a sealed box. I love sealed setups more than potted setups. I get for sealed setups, you get like a very much tighter bars, controlled bars. I mean, that's really what you want. Unless you're going competition grade, that's when you got to pot it. But I'm in love with sealed boxes. So I went with this 10-inch B box. I had this lying around. I had an old subwoofer in, so I pulled out the old subwoofer, and then I modified it by adding some polyfill to it because the box, it's really on the minimal side for the sub. So when you add this polyfilling, it tricks the box into thinking the enclosure is bigger because of the time it takes for the vibrations to come back to the speaker. So the speaker plays a much louder sound when you polyfill your box. But you have to be careful not to polyfill too much. Yeah, not to choke the speaker. You just want to cover the sides of the box, the top, the down, to make sure the sound waves have a little bit of resistance coming back to the speaker, and that way your sub can play even much louder if you do it that way. And yes, so as you can see in this video, I filled the box with the poly filling and still have a lot of space for the driver to see in there. And then we can get the speaker in, wired properly. Make sure when you're wiring your speaker, you solder it. Yeah, you solder. Make sure you solder. Don't just twist your wires and tape it. You have to twist it, solder it, and then tape it, and then use a tester tape. Now, a tester tape, this is what I mean by a tester tape. There is this one, it's a red wolf wire harness. So it's this kind of self-adhesive cloth tape. This is what we want to use for all our installs. So we're gonna use the rubber, the regular rubber electric tape to tape our wires together and stuff if we don't want to solder. That gives us the waterproof. And then you use this tester tape to give you an OEM like finish and to prevent rattles, right? That's what we use this tape for. So before we begin to install anything, we have to understand the architecture of our W206. The audio architecture is kind of different from the previous generation. That's why a lot of people are having trouble installing a subwoofer and getting a clean sound out of this car. So the MBUX screen is just a display. Yeah. So that screen that you see when you get into your car is just a display. Behind that screen is the actual head unit, and that's what is called the MBUX. Now that MBUX, that's where the signal is produced. The signal is generated at that box behind the screen. The music, the navigation, the voice, the phone calls, everything. Now at that stage, the sound is clean, the sound is flat, the sound is balanced, is untouched. That's the best possible signal that you can get in the car. Now after the signal leaves the MBUX screen, it goes into a model called the front sam. That's where Mercedes now changes that sound by boosting some frequency, adding some loudness curves, limiting the bass at higher volumes. That is for bass protection. Mercedes does this to protect your bass speaker so you don't blow it, because they know people are gonna play music at high volumes, crank it all the way up, and too much pressure and stress on that speaker can make it give up quickly. So all this processing is done on the front sam to reduce the bass when you crank it up. And to be fair, that's not what we want. We want to have a bass really high when we are playing our car. You want it to really pump, you understand? But then you get so pissed off when you crank your bass up, you crank your volume up, and then the bass dies. Yeah, all this is done at the front sam. So now once this happens, the signal you're getting from that front sam is no longer clean. Now, many people tap from the doors or after the factory amp. In this case, the front sam. If you're working with the Burmester system, then you're tapping from the amplifier, the Burmester amplifier. In this case, we don't have the Burmester system, so all the processing is done at the front sam. Now, if you're tapping after the speaker, the signal is already altered, it's already compressed, it's already limited. Now, when you send that signal into an aftermarket amplifier, then you're just trying to fix a problem that didn't even need to exist in the first place. And then the output you're getting is really muddy sound, bass drop off, and you're getting like tuning problems. So you don't want to tap from the front sam, because is gonna give you a very big problem, a very big challenge trying to integrate an aftermarket solution. Mind you, we are trying to get an OEM plus sound with this system that we're doing. Wire, you need to get a wire, a 20 gauge. About 20 gauge is plain. It's good for you to tap the speakers. So get a 20 gauge. This kind of wires. Make sure it's oxygen free copper. By the way, I mean, if you're doing anything audio on your car, you want to get iron sound and clean sound, no distortion, less resistance, go for OFC. OFC cables are one of the best phenomenal that you can get. They are a little bit more expensive than CCA, than copper clad aluminum, but OFC is what you should always strive to get. Like, it's better you spend that extra money and get a better sound, Yeah, your wires matter a lot. So we're gonna get this sound. It's got two active connectors, copper, and then when we get this, we're gonna cut the length we need, then separate those two connectors into single connectors, and then we're gonna twist them. Yeah, we have to twist them. So that way we twist it so we can get a twisted pair that will cancel out all the signal interference and will maintain a clean signal going through this. And then after that, we want to wrap the wires with a tester tape to prevent any rattles. So you have to make sure you always wrap it. It gives you some kind of OEM style finish. You don't want a red and black wire just running around in your car behind your screen. You want to make sure you tester them together. Yeah. So what's the correct tap point? I'm gonna take you to the car where all this was set up. So as you can see, it's a W206 as formatic. So I had to do all the setup to start this. So first things we're gonna do is disconnect the negative battery before you start any work in your car. You don't want to bridge anything by mistake and blow up some fuse somewhere that you don't even know where they are, and then you're just giving yourself a lot of work, or you cause a lot of campus issues. So disconnecting negative battery, first thing, always do that. So after we disconnect a negative battery, we want to start to remove the trim pieces on our car. So you get a little plastic tool. I mean, you can get that anywhere. So you'll remove all the trim pieces, starting with this piece. We take off that piece, and then after, we're able to get to these two screws that hold the screen together. That is just the screen for the MBUX unit. The MBUX unit is the one behind the screen. So we slide the screen down, remove those two screws, slide the screen down. At that point, we can take the screen apart. Now the screen has about two set of bundles of wires going behind it. Now none of that is our audio. None of that matters. That's just a display signal that and connectors that is going to the screen. So that really doesn't work for us. So we continue, and then we remove the plastic. This big plastic is being held by 8 torque screws. We take off all of the screws that is holding that together, and at that point we can get to the MBUX unit. Now that behind there, that's the MBUX unit. Yes, that's the MBUX unit. See that unit right there? That's the MBUX, and that's 2 connectors going into it. There's a connector, a bigger connector, and there's a smaller connector. Now the audio signals that we want to tap is from the bigger connectors. Yeah, it's from the bigger connector. The one with the bigger bundle of wire, that's the one we want to tap our speaker from. What we are aiming to tap from that is our front right and front left speakers. So we want to tap signal going to the front right door, and front left door is the best signal you can get in the vehicle. That signal is is balanced, is flat, is untouched, and it has not been processed. So that's basically what you need to tap. You don't need any other one. You don't need the rear right or the rear left because you can get all of that. So you are basically looking for twisted pairs. So there are four set of twisted pair wires, about 20 to 22 gauge. So that's really what you are aiming for. I'll show you a picture of the harness. So that's the bigger one. It's got a bigger bundle, and the bigger connector on the left has the bigger bundle, which is on the right. It's kind of inverted. It's curved. Yeah. So you see that wire you're looking at right there. That is the green, the twisted pair, the green with the green and the brown stripe. That's your front right. So that was done after a lot of testing, right? So as you can see here, I was testing here. At this point, I had a black with black and green. That's not what you want. That was for the rear right speakers. Yes, that's the rear right speakers. I did a testing on that, verified that there was no bass roll off at high volumes. So this one right here, this is what you need for your front right speaker. So we're gonna tap into that. You can use the military splice method to tap into that. I mean, you just peel off the wires a little bit, just the cover, the insulator a little bit, and wrap the new one in and within, and wrap it around it, and then you can solder it or you can tape it. Most of the time, you can get away with taping it without soldering it with the military splice method. So, and this one right here is our front left. So we're gonna tap this also front left. So we have a front right that we're gonna tap, and we have a front left that we're gonna tap into. Yeah. So right now, I had to test the wires. So currently I'm testing our rear right wires. This is where I was testing for bass roll off. That's a video you see here. I did the test for all of the wires to verify that which one is front right, front left, and rear right, rear left. So as you can see here, I have a radio on, and I'm increasing the volume, and you can see the AC voltage on the multimeter increases steadily as you increase the volume up. It goes up to 3 volt, and as you bring it down and you bring it to 0, the AC should read 0. That's how you know you are on the correct wiring. You might need to test your wiring to be sure that that is what it is, because I don't know, Mercedes might change the colors on your cars, on different cars, depending on where they are made. They might change so many things just to confuse you guys. But once you get a multimeter, you set it to AC voltage, you can test those wires and find out which one is your audio signal. So right now, I've connected the signal. So now this is tapping into the front left signal. So that's how we tap into the front left signal, and then we are able to connect all the signal and then wire it with the tester tape properly. Remember the ones that we prepared earlier? Yeah. So you zip tie it, make sure it doesn't rattle, and you pass it. It comes out down there, and you can pass it all around on the nice and neatly, and then through the point all the way to the back. Now, see, that is it right there. So we are looking for front right. This is for your information. The front right is a positive green, negative is green brown. The front left is positive is black, negative is yellow blue. That is exactly what we're looking for in the system. Now, do you need this LC2i Pro advanced audio control unit for your conversion? The thing is, no, it's not necessary. It's not necessary. You don't need this. This has lots of processing that you can do on it, which you don't need. I'm not saying it's not gonna work. This is gonna work beautifully, but you need to know how to kill out the processing on this. You need to make sure there's no processing, no threshold set. And you don't even want to use the base output if you use this. You want to use the main output only, because you want a full signal coming from this. Because when we pass the signal into our DSP, we want it to be in such a way that if we want to now upgrade our speakers and add a center and a roof speaker, and maybe some other rear speakers, we are able to have a clean sound, because that is the sound that's going to DSP. The full range has to go into the DSP, not the bass. The full range. In the DSP, then we do the crossover for the bass output separately, crossover for mids, crossover for highs, crossover for mid bass, and all that. All that will be done in the DSP. So do you need this? No, you don't need this. You don't need this. This just adds unnecessary complexity to your system. What you need is just this: an active lock, a simple active lock which does nothing but conversion. So it converts your high level to low level signal. Your high level coming from the MBUX unit is a balanced signal. It converts that to RCA output, low level signal that you can feed into your DSP. And that's really only what you want. That's all you want. So before we go into the final system architecture, let me show you how it all happens. So we have to fuse at about 200 amperes with a 10 gauge wire. So the 10 gauge wire it's the one from Recoil. So this is a OFC, 99.99% OFC 10 gauge. So this is what we want to use. It's better you go thick. It's better you go really, really thick. Even though the distance I'm running at the back of the W206 is a very short distance. It's about 3 feet. Like, you're not running 15 feet. But still, you want a 10 gauge. You can get away with a 4 gauge. Yeah, you can get away with 4 gauge. But if you want a system that performs no voltage drops at high volumes, you want to go with a 0 gauge OFC. It's pretty flexible and pretty easy to install. Very, very easy to install. So we're going to fuse that at 200 amps. Yeah, we'll fuse that at 200 amps. And then we have to find a very good ground chassis point. Now, finding a chassis point, you got to do your test a lot. You don't want an intermittent ground. You want a ground that is been grounded all the time, a ground that is very strong, and you want a ground at the same gauge, 10 gauge. Yes, you want a ground at the same gauge. I'll show you the chassis point I found to be the most reliable was sitting right on the right hand side there. So that was the chassis point that was very reliable right there. So I was able to grab that. See that recoil? Yeah. So that screw right there was a very good ground, which never failed anytime. If you want, you can always scrape off the paint and the metal and take off the bolt and reinstall the bolt so that you can have a proper ground connection. But you need a proper ground connection. If not, you're not gonna get good power. And if you don't get good power, you can get distortion, even if you get power at all. Yeah. So now we tap the front left into the Taram's DSP. Now this is where the DSP did not really perform up to specification. So I was able to tap that into the DSP, and it was able to also act as a remote in to turn on the DSP. For the DSP, you don't need to wire it. You can wire it to a fuse box somewhere. You don't need a special gauge for that. I mean, a 20 gauge is plenty. 22 gauge, 18 gauge is fine for that. You don't need any big wiring for the DSP. DSP pulls nothing more than 3 amps, right? So where I was able to wire that the signal I connected behind the MBUX unit directly into the Tyrams amp, and the Tyrams amp actually did not output any sound, so I had to convert and use a passive lock, which I had lying around. So I did all these tests. I tested with a passive lock. I was able to get sound with a passive lock. My subwoofer was playing, but it was like a really, really weak bass. So the final signal flow that worked is from the MBUX unit, directly goes to the lock. Eye level into the lock. The lock is powered. That does the conversion into RCA output. That RCA output goes into your DSP input A and B. From your DSP input, you have all the processing done on the DSP input, on the DSP itself, to correct the signal, also to add the crossovers, the parametric equalizer to the output that you want, and then you can get the output to go now into the input of the sub. So we have the output coming from the DSP into the sub amp, and from that sub amp we have a 0 gauge powering that, and the remote from the lock goes into the DSP. The remote from the DSP out goes into the in of the amplifier, and that we can get a subwoofer working. So this is the setup that really worked. Disregard the batteries and the batteries. This is a setup that really worked for us. So wiring it properly, like I said, I can't stress this enough. You need OFC wiring. If you want to get a reliable, good sound all the time, you need an OFC wiring. Always also secure your wiring. Use posi tabs, military splice, or solder with it. My go-to kind of connection, I don't like posi tabs. I don't know. People use posi tabs, but I don't like posi tabs. It just doesn't feel like it has that connection good for me. But a lot of people recommend that. I go with the military splice. Military splice is what really works for me. You peel off the insulator. Make sure you do not cut the wire. Just peel off the insulator, insert your wire in, and twist it around. I mean, nothing's getting that wire out. And you have to make sure you preserve the twisted pair integrity. Maintain a twisted pair cable structure. Make sure you ground securely. You route your cable separately from your power. Do not route the cable on top of the power. Even though we have twisted it to avoid interference, you can probably get away with passing a few power wires, but do not constantly route it on top of your power. And wrap it with Tesa OEM Tesa tip for a very OEM level finish. So for our DSP, it's better to start small. So a whole different video about the DSP tuning. That's a whole video on its own. But yeah, so our DSP, what it does, we fix the bass integration. When we add a center speaker and a roof speakers, our DSP will be able to tune it properly to match the OEM sound and the speaker that is already in the car, the front and the rear speakers. You don't want to have your center speakers pulling too much higher, or you don't want to hear your roof speakers. You just want to create an ambience in the whole car, right? And then we have the crossovers that we're gonna set for the low pass and the center speaker and the roof speaker. Eventually, when you get an amp, you can use that to power a small amp, 400 watts or something. 4-channel 400 watt amp can power your center and roof speakers. I mean, you don't need much power for that. So why does this sound OEM plus? Because you preserve your signal integrity. This method maintains the original signal quality, and You avoid all the countermeasures that happens at the front SAM that could degrade your performance. No, you're getting the signal clean from the back of the MBUX unit. Now, you have the best balanced sound quality, and it's very, very reliable. Now, you're gonna look at so we have to mount the I mounted the terms DMP directly on the cloth with wood screws, and for the amp I mounted it with metal screws. Disregard the terms on the amp, it's just a sticker. So I mounted that on the carpet directly. I had a board before which I wanted to use, but eventually it turned out not very useful. So Final verdict with the active. I can play the copyright issues, but you can really see there. Everything lights up, everything's working, everything is clean, and then our speakers are pumping really good. Yeah, it. I mean, you get really, really deep growl, deep sound, SP or whatever you want, clean sound you get from this. So that's all about this video, right? So you make sure your signal tapping location is behind the inbox screen. Always use a DSP. Use a DSP. You have total control on your audio sound when you use a DSP. Use it to achieve superior sound quality. I mean, sometimes you drive in, but maybe your 40 Hz is it's not pumping as it should pump, or you just want something really deeper. You can go to your DSP, you can set it to 35 Hz, increase the decibels and that, make sure it's not clipping, and then you can have even more outwinding bass than that. So it depends on what you want to use, and try to avoid this LC2i Pro. I mean, it has features that you don't need in this setup. Your DSP is doing everything. You don't need the LC2i Pro. A simple Scotch Active LOC or any other brand. Everything. I'm not being sponsored for this video, by the way. I'm just telling you what works. This what works for W206, and it's been really good. And try to tune your system from balanced rather than focusing on maximum volume, and then you get a very good OEM finish. Thank you very much.